Have you ever noticed that the harder you chase money, the dream relationship, the perfect body, the faster these things seem to run away from you? It's like the universe suddenly becomes an Olympic sprinter. But what if I told you the problem isn't what you're trying to manifest, it's who you are being while you try? Today, I'm going to show you the quantum shift that turns everything around. Because when you stop manifesting desires and start manifesting your true identity, reality has no choice but to reorganize around you. Stay with me until the end, because I'll walk you through a 4-stage process that has already transformed thousands of lives. Let's start this journey by imagining something important, because it sets the tone for everything we're about to explore. Most of us spend years trying to change the world around us, never realizing that the external world wasn't where the power was all along. We switch jobs, change relationships, try new routines, buy planners, then dump those planners, blame Mercury retrograde, and then repeat the whole cycle. And after all that, nothing really sticks. It's not because you're broken or incapable. It's because you've been operating from an outdated internal identity, one that was never designed to support the future you truly desire. It's like trying to build a skyscraper on the foundation of a tiny wooden cabin. And this is where it gets really interesting. In the world of human potential and quantum behavior, your identity isn't just who you think you are. It's who your nervous system is calibrated to allow you to be. You can want abundance with all your heart. But if your subconscious identity is wired for scarcity, it's like your mind is hitting the gas while your energy is slamming on the brakes. You can visualize love every single morning, but if your identity is built around a fear of rejection, your system will treat intimacy like a dangerous animal. You can repeat, "I am abundant" 1,000 times, but if your inner voice whispers, "No, you're not," guess which one the universe responds to? Spoiler alert, it's not the one on your vision board. Everything you manifest is filtered through the person you are being in this very moment. Most people don't even realize how often they unknowingly sabotage their own manifestations. They ask for more money but vibrate with stress every time they open their bank app. They ask for a great partner but rehearse the story of abandonment in their mind before the first date even begins. They want a healthier body but still internally identify as someone who always quits. You see, it's not the desire that fails. It's the identity that can't sustain the frequency of what was asked for. In this first stage, I want us to gently explore these invisible patterns you've been living from. And don't worry, this isn't about blaming yourself, analyzing trauma for hours, or digging through childhood memories like you're on some psychological scavenger hunt. This is purely about awareness, not judgment. Think of it as turning on a light in a room you've been walking through in the dark. You weren't clumsy, you just couldn't see the furniture. So here's your invitation for this phase. Take a slow, deep breath and bring to mind one desire you've been chasing with intensity. Not something you lightly want, but something you've been chasing. The one that feels just out of reach, the one you keep hoping will finally cooperate. Now, hold it gently in your awareness and just pay attention to your physical reaction. Your thoughts can lie, but your body can't. Does your chest tighten? Does your stomach drop? Does your jaw clench as if your nervous system is already expecting disappointment? These reactions are not random. They are the emotional fingerprints of your current identity. This identity doesn't just shape your manifestations, it shapes your entire perception of reality. When you identify as someone who's unlucky, you filter reality through that lens. When you identify as someone who tries hard but never gets results, the universe graciously matches that script. And when you identify as someone who is only safe when life is predictable, you unconsciously reject expansion because it feels like danger, not opportunity. Here's the real kicker. Your mind can want success, but your identity can fear the consequences of it. Your mind can want love, but your identity can fear intimacy. Your mind can want abundance, but your identity can fear responsibility. These inner contradictions create the exact push and pull that makes it feel like your manifestations are teasing you on purpose. But here's the most powerful part. Your identity is not fixed. It's not a prison, it's a frequency. It can shift, expand, and evolve. And when it does, your external world adjusts automatically, without the burnout of chasing or forcing. You're going to start noticing this soon because we're not trying to manifest from the outside in. We're manifesting from the inside out. I want you to feel the difference between wanting and being. Wanting creates a gap. Being collapses it. When you want something, you reinforce its absence. When you become the identity that already matches that reality, the universe doesn't bring it to you, it reveals it around you. In this first phase, we're not doing an exercise. We're stepping into an experience. Just notice the version of you who has been trying to manifest. Notice their fears, their patterns, their strategies, their beliefs about what they're allowed to have. This is not about criticizing them, it's about understanding them. Because before you upgrade your identity, you need to see the one you've been living from. And as this clarity begins, something subtle shifts. You stop chasing outcomes like they owe you something. You start becoming the version of yourself for whom those outcomes are natural. And when you reach this moment, even just for a few seconds, the universe starts to recalibrate. This Right here is the doorway. The moment where you stop playing the old game and start activating the identity that will carry you through the next stages of this transformation. Now that you've started to see the identity you've been manifesting from, we can step into the second phase of this transformation. This is all about understanding how reality responds to who you are on the inside, not what you insist on doing on the outside. This is the point where people often say, I am doing everything right, so why is nothing changing? The answer is almost never in your actions. It's in your alignment. You can take all the perfect steps, but if you're doing them from the wrong identity, the universe just gets mixed signals. It's like texting someone, I'm totally calm, while your energy is sending 40 unread messages in all caps. In this phase, we're going to explore one of the most overlooked principles of manifestation. Your reality doesn't mirror your intentions. It mirrors your frequency. Intentions are what you think. Frequency is what you are. And while your mind can create a temporary intention, your frequency is the combination of your beliefs, emotions, and your core identity. It's the energetic signature you broadcast without even trying. And here's the truth, most people skip. You don't attract what you want. You attract the reality that feels familiar. Not pleasant, not fulfilling, just familiar. Your nervous system loves familiarity. It clings to it like a security blanket. So, if chaos feels familiar, you'll unconsciously gravitate toward it. If disappointment feels familiar, you'll expect it. If struggle feels familiar, you'll feel weirdly uncomfortable when things get easy. It's not sabotage. It's your identity being more loyal to what it knows than what you desire. This is why people say they want abundance but feel safer worrying about money. They say they want healthy love but feel more in control when they're distant. They say they want peace but only feel alive in stress and urgency. If you listen closely, you can hear the identity behind each contradiction. Now that you've begun to sense the upgraded identity you're moving toward, we enter the third phase of this transformation, the moment where intention and identity start merging into a single frequency. This is where people usually say they feel something clicking, even if they can't explain what it is. And it makes sense, because this phase is where the mind stops trying to control everything and the nervous system begins to cooperate. It's the point where you shift from thinking about change to becoming the environment where change grows naturally. Most of us spend our lives trying to force outcomes through effort, discipline, and willpower, which are incredible tools but terrible foundations. You can force a habit, but you cannot force an identity. And when you try, you create resistance, frustration, and emotional whiplash. This is why so many people feel inspired at 10 a.m. and overwhelmed by 3 p.m. The motivation wasn't the problem. The identity wasn't aligned with the motivation, so it couldn't hold it. In this third phase, we explore alignment not as a mystical concept, but as a biological and energetic reality. Your thoughts, emotions, and actions must stop behaving like they're living in separate apartments. They need to move in together. When intention says one thing, emotion says another, and behavior contradicts both. The universe receives 3 different requests and doesn't know which one to deliver. It's like ordering 3 different meals to the same table and being upset when none of them taste right. The magic of this phase begins when your nervous system starts to experience what your mind has been imagining. And that happens not through fantasy, but through embodiment. Embodiment is the art of rehearsing your future self in the present moment. Not faking it, not pretending, not playing make-believe, but allowing yourself to feel what it would be like to live from the identity you are becoming. This is not about acting like someone you're not. It's about visiting the version of yourself that already exists in potential and letting your system get familiar with them. In this stage, familiarity becomes your most powerful ally. Remember how your identity clings to what feels familiar. Here you use that mechanism in your favor. You repeatedly expose your nervous system to the emotions, choices, and reactions of your upgraded identity until they stop feeling foreign and start feeling natural. When ease becomes familiar, you stop sabotaging it. When confidence becomes familiar, you stop shrinking. When receiving becomes familiar, you stop blocking opportunities. And when stability becomes familiar, chaos stops feeling like home. To support this shift, I want to invite you to a subtle but profound experience. Imagine you're stepping into a room where only your future identity lives. This version of you has clarity, emotional maturity, and a calm sense of self-worth that doesn't need external proof. Notice how they hold themselves. Notice how they respond instead of react. Notice the absence of desperation, anxiety, or self-defense. This upgraded version of you is not trying to impress the universe. They are simply aligned with it. Now observe how this version of you moves through a decision. Not a big life-altering decision, just a simple daily one. Something ordinary that reveals identity more than grand gestures ever could. Do they choose from fear or possibility? Do they rush or give themselves space? Do they doubt or trust? In this moment, you're not analyzing them. You're letting your nervous system feel the texture of their choices. This emotional absorption is what begins the integration. And here's the beautiful part. Once your system becomes familiar with this upgraded emotional baseline, your external behaviors begin to shift without strain. You start saying no where the old you would have said yes out of fear. You start saying yes where the old you would have hesitated out of self-doubt. You stop negotiating your worth. You stop shrinking to be acceptable. You stop over-explaining yourself. And most importantly, you stop energizing situations that drain you, because your system recognizes instantly that they belong to an identity you are no longer living from. This internal coherence creates a magnetic field around you, something subtle but unmistakable. People feel your presence differently. Opportunities respond differently. Even challenges appear differently, not as threats but as neutral information. You stop taking everything personally. You stop interpreting discomfort as a sign of failure. You begin to understand that alignment doesn't eliminate challenges, it changes your relationship to them. In this third phase, manifestation begins to feel less like asking and more like participating. You're no longer trying to pull the future toward you. You're stepping into the frequency where the future is already happening. The difference is enormous. When you try to pull a future self from the wrong identity, you drain yourself. When you align with the identity that matches that future, everything flows with less resistance. This is the heart of the transformation. You become a stable broadcaster of the identity you want to embody. And when your energy stabilizes, reality stabilizes with it. The universe does not respond to intensity, it responds to consistency. And this phase is where your consistency begins to emerge, not from discipline, but from identity. By the time you reach the end of this stage, you'll notice something subtle but powerful. You're not trying to become the upgraded version of yourself anymore. You're remembering them. And the more you remember, the more naturally you begin to live as them. This is the threshold. The moment where intention, emotion, and identity finally start moving in the same direction. This fourth stage is where everything you've explored so far begins to integrate into real, lasting transformation. Not through force or intensity, but through a new relationship with yourself. One rooted in identity instead of effort. Up until now, you've observed your patterns, felt the emotional baseline that shaped your past, and stepped into the energy of the version of you who naturally lives the life you've been trying to manifest. In this stage, we turn that insight into embodiment. Not in a dramatic, mystical way, but in subtle shifts that become a new normal. People often think transformation requires massive quantum explosions or life-changing epiphanies. But most of the time it happens through gentle recognitions that accumulate until the old version of you simply doesn't make sense anymore. Think of it like outgrowing a pair of shoes. One day they fit, the next day you just know they don't, and there's no going back. That's identity. It expands from the inside out, and once it stretches, it doesn't shrink again. In this phase, your inner and outer worlds begin to mirror each other with increasing coherence. You may notice that situations you used to tolerate now feel too heavy or misaligned. Conversations you used to avoid become easier because your worth no longer depends on someone else's reaction. Opportunities that once felt intimidating now feel approachable. This isn't luck. This is your identity catching up with the future you've been rehearsing, and the universe finally having something stable to respond to. And now that this new calibration is happening, this is the perfect moment to experience the shift more intentionally. Not an exercise in the rigid sense, but a lived moment of integration. And if you're in a place where you can give a bit of attention inward, let's bring what you've learned into your lived, breathing reality. Nothing complicated, nothing to perform, just a simple space for the next version of you to take shape. So take a slow breath and imagine yourself stepping into a version of your life where things feel aligned, calm, and supportive. Let your body sense what it feels like to exist without the emotional tightness of old narratives. Notice how you would stand, how you would speak, how you would make decisions if you trusted that your identity and your reality were finally on the same page. Let your system feel the ease of this alignment, the simplicity, the clarity. This moment of embodiment is what tells the universe, I am ready for this, not as a request, but as a declaration. Now, imagine something you've been wanting to manifest. Don't picture it far away. Place it near you, as if it's already part of your everyday environment. Let it be familiar, not extraordinary. Let it feel like something that belongs to you, not something you're begging for. This emotional familiarity is the key. Your identity is rewriting the script of what feels normal. And this is the exact moment where your reality begins to reorganize around your new frequency. And now that you've stepped into this inner shift, let's take it one layer deeper. Picture yourself facing a small challenge, something your old identity would have reacted to with stress or self-doubt. Watch how this upgraded version of you responds instead. Notice the calm, the clarity, the trust. Notice how the new identity makes decisions without collapsing into old emotional patterns. This is the difference between wanting change and becoming the environment where change thrives. You're not just imagining a different life. You're embodying the self that naturally lives it. As this version of you anchors itself into your awareness, something beautiful happens. You stop waiting for signs, because you start being the sign. You stop asking for permission, because you start recognizing your own authority. You stop negotiating with fear, because you finally see that fear was never the gatekeeper. just a leftover habit of an identity you outgrew. In this final stage, the shift becomes permanent because you're no longer trying to manifest from lack or longing. You're manifesting from congruence, coherence, and emotional safety. You are stepping into a new relationship with the universe, one where you're no longer chasing outcomes. You're collaborating with them, and that collaboration creates momentum that continues long after this video ends. Before we wrap up this journey, I want to leave you with something simple and powerful. Transformation doesn't begin when you see results. It begins when you start acting like someone who expects them. When you choose from trust instead of fear. When you make space for the identity that was always waiting beneath the surface. When you embody the version of you who is ready, not someday, but now. And if this video has opened something inside you, even a small shift, take a moment to support this space. Check if you've already liked the video. See if you resubscribe to the channel and maybe leave a comment that can inspire someone else who is going through their own awakening. Not because the algorithm demands it, but because your voice might be exactly what someone needs to hear today. You're not just watching a transformation, you're living it. And the identity you've begun to awaken in this journey is only the beginning of what you're capable of becoming. As you step into this fifth stage, something remarkable begins to happen. The identity you've been rehearsing is no longer just an idea floating above your life. It starts to sink into your system, your emotions, your patterns, and most importantly, your nervous system. This is the phase where your inner architecture begins to shift from the foundation up, not through force or performance, but through neuroplasticity, coherence, and repetition of a new emotional truth. In other words, this is where the software gets updated, not by deleting the old code, but by writing a better one on top. Most people underestimate how much their nervous system dictates their reality. They assume they're making conscious choices. But the truth is that most decisions, reactions, and interpretations come from stored patterns the body memorized years ago. These patterns operate like background apps that never close. They influence everything, from how much abundance you allow in, to how deeply you let someone love you, to how bold you permit yourself to be. And because they run automatically, most people don't even notice they're living inside an emotional echo of the past. This fifth stage is all about breaking that echo, not by going to war with your old self, but by creating a new internal environment that your system begins to prefer. And yes, your system can prefer a new frequency, even if the old one felt like home. Familiarity isn't destiny, it's just habit. And habits can be rewritten when you introduce a different emotional baseline, consistently enough that your nervous system says, oh, this is safe too. Maybe even safer. Think about how your system used to operate. It anticipated disappointment to protect you. It prepared for rejection before connection could even happen. It braced for scarcity in case abundance didn't arrive. These were survival strategies, not flaws. Your nervous system wasn't trying to sabotage your life. It was trying to protect you from emotional shocks. But at some point, what protected you began to limit you. And this stage is where that old implicit contract finally gets renegotiated. The question now becomes simple. What emotional state does your upgraded identity consider normal? Not extraordinary, not rare, but normal. Is it calm confidence? A grounded sense of worth? Emotional stability? Quiet certainty? This is the frequency we are preparing your system to adopt as its new default. And this shift doesn't happen through affirmations alone. It happens when your thoughts, emotions, and actions start speaking the same language to your nervous system, telling it the same story over and over until the old story loses volume. To support this shift, I want to invite you into a very subtle inner experience. Nothing dramatic, nothing theatrical. Just a moment of honest internal recognition. Let your awareness settle for a moment and imagine your nervous system as a vast network of pathways, each one shaped by repetition. Now, picture a new pathway forming, one that leads directly to the emotional state of your upgraded identity. You don't need to force anything. Just imagine how it feels when this new path becomes easier to access than the old one. Notice how your breath changes, how your shoulders soften, how your chest opens even slightly. This is not visualization for the sake of fantasy. It's your system responding to possibility. Now bring to mind a challenge you've faced repeatedly in your life. One that used to trigger an automatic reaction from your old identity. Instead of replaying the old response, watch how your upgraded identity handles it. Maybe there's more pause. Maybe there's more clarity. Maybe there's less need to defend or justify. What you're redoing right now is showing your nervous system that there is more than one way to respond, and that the new way doesn't create danger. It creates stability. This is how the script gets rewritten. Not by forcing yourself to be different, but by gently experiencing a different option until it stops feeling foreign. It's the same principle behind learning a new language. At first, everything feels awkward and unnatural. But with repetition, the new structure stops feeling like a performance and starts feeling like home. Your identity works the same way. When you revisit the emotional frequency of your future self enough times, it stops feeling aspirational and starts feeling familiar. That familiarity is everything. It determines what opportunities you pursue, what relationships you enter, how you interpret uncertainty, and how you hold yourself in moments where the old you would have collapsed. Once your system gets comfortable with a new emotional baseline, your external behavior begins to shift without strain. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop shrinking and start expanding. You stop bracing for life and start collaborating with it. And the beautiful part is that reality responds to this internal shift in ways that feel subtle at first, then dramatic. Conversations unfold differently. People treat you differently. The things you used to attract disappear, and the things you used to repel begin to gravitate toward you. It's not magic. It's biological coherence meeting energetic alignment. It's your identity updating its operating system. As this stage integrates, you'll notice a quiet truth that feels almost like a secret. Your old self isn't being erased, it's being retired. It served its purpose, it protected you. But it doesn't need to run your life anymore. A new version of you is taking the front seat, one that's not built on fear or familiar struggle, but on clarity, alignment, and emotional stability. And as you settle into this fifth stage, allow yourself to feel the calm certainty of this new phase. You are not rehearsing anymore, you are integrating. And integration is where identity becomes reality. As you enter this sixth stage, you may start noticing something surprising, something you didn't consciously try to create. The version of you that operated from old patterns begins to feel distant, almost like a character you once played but no longer identify with. And this distance isn't forced. It happens naturally, in the same way you slowly stop craving habits you've outgrown, or stop responding to situations that used to ignite you. It's the quiet collapse of the old self, not through destruction, but through irrelevance. In this phase, you might feel a mix of unfamiliar ease and unexpected clarity. Situations that once triggered anxiety now seem less personal. Patterns that used to feel unavoidable begin to lose their hold. You may even catch yourself thinking, "Why did this bother me for so long?" Or "I don't need to react to this anymore." This is the emotional evidence that your internal frequency has shifted. When your identity changes, the world does not disappear. It rearranges itself around who you've become. And yes, this rearrangement can feel disorienting at first. Growth often feels like walking around in a new pair of shoes that your brain hasn't fully mapped yet. They fit, they're comfortable, but part of you still expects blisters that never come. That's what happens when your inner world updates faster than your old expectations. Your mind looks for the familiar reaction, but your system doesn't match it anymore. This mismatch is not a problem. It's proof that the old identity is dissolving. Here's something important to understand. The collapse of the old self is not a dramatic event. It rarely feels like fireworks or revelations. It's subtle, like realizing you no longer believe a story you used to repeat. You stop putting energy into identities that don't align with who you're becoming. The old emotional loops lose their emotional reward. What once felt like survival no longer feels necessary. And because your system is no longer feeding these loops, they gradually fall apart. This falling apart can show up in many ways. Maybe you stop engaging in certain arguments. Maybe you stop chasing validation from people who never truly saw you. Maybe you stop tolerating environments that drain you. Maybe you stop pretending to be smaller than you are. None of these shifts require force. They come from an internal certainty that becomes stronger than the fear that once held you back. But with this collapse, there often comes a phase of emotional detox. Old thoughts may surface one last time, not to pull you back, but to be released. Think of it like leftover files on a hard drive that your system no longer needs. They rise to the surface because they're being cleared out. You don't need to resist them or assign meaning to them. Just recognize that they're remnants of an identity that is exiting the stage. You're not regressing, you're recalibrating. In this stage, you're also going to notice something deeply empowering. Your responses begin to change before your thoughts do. You pause where you once reacted impulsively. You reflect where you once defended yourself. You choose peace where you once chased approval. This is embodiment in its purest form. When your responses change without effort, it's because your nervous system has accepted the new identity as your emotional home. And because of that, your outer world begins to reshape itself. You may feel pulled toward environments that match your new frequency and pushed away from those that don't. People who align with your old identity may drift out of your life naturally. Conversations will evolve. Boundaries will feel easier. Decisions will feel cleaner. Opportunities that once intimidated you now feel strangely appropriate. It isn't the universe testing you. It's the universe reorganizing itself to match your inner reality. If this stage feels a bit like navigating a new landscape, that's because you are. But this landscape isn't random. It's built from the choices you're making from your upgraded identity. The more consistently you choose from this place of inner clarity, the faster your external world stabilizes around it. And stability is the point. Not perfection, not control, but alignment. To help anchor this stage, let's move into a simple inner experience. Not a task, not a ritual, just a moment of awareness. Imagine standing between two versions of yourself. On one side, the version you lived from 4 years, familiar but heavy. On the other side, the version you've been embodying through this journey, grounded and congruent. Feel the difference in their posture, their breath, their expectations. Notice which one feels like truth and which one feels like memory. Allow yourself to gently step toward the identity that feels true. Not by forcing anything, but by letting your system show you where it naturally leans. This moment of internal honesty is what seals the collapse of the old self. You are not abandoning your past, you're simply not letting it define your future. This sixth stage is where the transformation becomes unmistakable. You're not rehearsing anymore. You're living differently, and life responds differently because of it. The collapse of the old identity is not the end. It's just the clearing of space for the identity that has been emerging since the beginning of this journey. And in the next stage, you'll see how this new identity begins to shape your reality with precision. Not through effort, but through resonance. As you enter the seventh stage of this journey, something powerful becomes clear. Manifestation no longer feels like a negotiation between you and the universe. It begins to feel like a reflection, a natural echo of the identity you've been embodying. This is the point where you realize that you don't manifest from desire alone, you manifest from congruence. When your identity aligns with the reality you want, life stops resisting you because you're no longer resisting yourself. And this alignment creates a shift that many people misunderstand. They think manifestation begins when the external result appears. But true manifestation begins much earlier, the moment you start behaving, feeling, and choosing from the identity that matches what you asked for. What you see in the physical world is just the final step in a process that started inside you long before anything materialized. In this stage, you begin to notice the subtle signs of alignment everywhere. Conversations unfold in your favor without effort. People show up with opportunities you didn't chase. Situations that once felt blocked start opening. Not because luck suddenly woke up and noticed you, but because your energy is finally broadcasting a coherent signal. The universe is not ignoring you, it's matching you, always has. Now you're matching back. And here's where things get interesting. You may start to experience what some people call micro-manifestations, those seemingly small but meaningful shifts that show you the external world is rearranging itself to reflect your new frequency. Maybe an unexpected ally appears. Maybe a solution reveals itself at the perfect moment. Maybe someone treats you with a level of respect or affection you're not used to. These moments are not random. They're indicators that your identity is stabilizing and that life is aligning with it. It's important to understand something here. Manifestation from identity feels different than manifestation from desire. Desire feels like reaching forward. Identity feels like expanding outward. Desire is rooted in wanting. Identity is rooted in being. And when you shift from wanting to being, the universe doesn't feel pressured by your timeline. It responds effortlessly because you're no longer asking for something outside yourself. You're allowing something that resonates with who you've already become. This stage is also where many people encounter a surprising sensation, a kind of emotional spaciousness that feels foreign at first. It might feel like calm, but a kind of calm that is so unfamiliar that your mind tries to turn it into boredom or doubt. This is not boredom, it's alignment. It's the absence of inner conflict. It's the silence that emerges when the old identity stops fighting for control. And in that silence, you gain access to a different level of clarity, one that allows you to make decisions from your future instead of your fear. Now let's bring this seventh stage into your lived experience. If you're in a place where you can focus inward for a moment, imagine a desire you've held tightly for a long time. Not the kind of desire that comes from anxiety or pressure, but one that comes from your deepest sense of purpose. Bring it into your awareness and ask yourself a simple question. If I were already the version of me who lives this reality, how would I feel right now? Not what would I think, not what would I do, but how would I feel in my body? Maybe you would feel grounded, maybe confident, maybe peaceful, maybe you would simply feel like nothing is missing anymore. The emotional state you sense in this moment is the frequency of the identity that matches your manifestation. When you tap into that emotional state consistently, you stop chasing the outcome and you start attracting the alignment that leads to it. And here's the beautiful part. You don't need to force the external world to change. You simply embody the internal frequency that causes the external world to shift around you. That's how identity manifests reality. Your identity becomes the gravitational field that organizes your life. And the more stable this identity becomes, the more stable your external reality becomes. In this seventh stage, you begin to understand manifestation as a process of resonance. You're not pulling something toward you. You're tuning yourself to the version of reality where that thing already exists. And once that tuning happens, outcomes flow in ways that feel natural, almost obvious. What once felt impossible now feels inevitable. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Before we close this stage, I want to invite you into one last moment of inner recognition. Picture your life 6 months from now if you continue embodying the identity you've been activating in this journey. not in a dreamlike fantasy, but in grounded, realistic detail. Notice the version of you moving through that life. Notice the calm certainty in their choices, the emotional stability in their interactions, the confidence in their presence. This vision is not an escape, it's a preview. And every time you see it clearly, you make it more accessible. This seventh stage is where manifestation turns into a relationship, a collaboration between your identity and the field around you. And once you understand this, you stop asking, when will it happen, and start recognizing it's already happening. The moment your identity shifts, the universe adjusts its frequency to match you. You are no longer hoping for alignment. You are generating it. And in the final stage, we seal this transformation so the identity UVA awakened becomes the foundation you walk with. Not just in this video, but in every choice, every step, and every reality that unfolds from here. And now we reach the end of this journey, even though nothing about this moment feels like an ending. It feels more like a door opening, a quiet shift inside you that doesn't demand applause or fireworks because the truth doesn't need to be loud to be life-changing. You've moved through 8 stages that weren't about learning something new. They were about remembering something ancient within you, something that had been buried under layers of fear, habits, expectations, and the noise of a world that kept rewarding the version of you that survived, instead of the version that wanted to live. But something changed here. You didn't just listen. You didn't just understand. You didn't just follow along. You shifted. You allowed your identity to rise from where it was stuck. You watched old emotional patterns loosen their grip. You felt your nervous system soften into a new baseline. You experience the difference between wanting a new life and becoming the person who naturally creates one. And if you take a breath right now, you can feel the space that opened inside you, a space your old self never had access to. This is the moment where your future starts responding to you in real time. Not because you forced anything, not because you recited affirmations until your throat was sore, not because you tried to convince the universe with perfect behavior, but because your identity finally stopped contradicting your desires. You aligned. And when you align, life reorganizes itself whether you're trying or not. What happens from here will not feel like magic, even though others will call it that. It will feel like clarity, like timing that suddenly makes sense, like decisions that come easily, like opportunities that show up aligned instead of random, like relationships that finally reflect your worth instead of your wounds. Because the universe doesn't bless you for working hard, it reflects you for working honestly. And the honesty you stepped into in this journey is the kind that can't be undone. You are not returning to who you were before this video. That version of you is complete, appreciated, but done. You're stepping forward with a new emotional gravity, one that pulls toward you the reality that matches your identity instead of the one you tolerated. This is the moment you stop negotiating with your old self and start partnering with your future self. That shift alone is enough to alter the trajectory of an entire life. Before you leave, take a moment to support the space we created together. Check if you've already liked this video. See if you're subscribed to the channel. And if you feel called to, share a comment that could encourage someone who's on their own path of becoming. Not because I'm asking for engagement, but because your words may become the spark someone else needs to rise. That's how we build a field of consciousness, one connection at a time. And carry this with you. Identity isn't built in a single moment, but there are moments that redefine identity forever. If this was one of those moments for you, trust it, live from it, walk with it, and remember that every reality you meant to experience is already waiting for the version of you who is ready to receive it. You just met that version today. And the journey from here is only beginning.